There is a quiet tragedy playing out in millions of lives right now, and almost no one talks about it. It has nothing to do with failure. It has nothing to do with bad luck. It is the slow, silent waste of potential that was never used, never tested, never given the chance to become what it was capable of becoming. Somewhere inside you right now is an ability you have never fully explored, a skill you never finished developing, an idea you never gave a real chance. And the hardest part is this: you can waste your potential without ever feeling like you are doing anything wrong. There is no dramatic moment where it disappears. It just quietly fades day by day while you are busy, while you are comfortable, while you are convinced that someday you will get around to it. Think about how strange this actually is. If someone stole a valuable item from you, you would notice immediately. You would feel the loss. You would search for it, report it, do whatever you could to get it back. But potential does not get stolen in a single moment. It leaks away slowly, in small decisions repeated so often they stop feeling like decisions at all. A day postponed here, a challenge avoided there, a question never asked. None of these moments feel significant on their own, but stretched across months and years, they quietly add up to an entire version of your life that never had the chance to exist. Today, we are going to walk through 7 signs that reveal when this is happening. Some of them will be obvious. A few of them will be uncomfortable because they will describe things you already suspected about yourself but never said out loud. Listen closely, because recognizing these signs is the first step to reversing them, and it is never too late to begin. The moment you can name a pattern clearly, you take away its ability to operate invisibly in your life. That alone is often the beginning of change. Let's start with the first sign. The first sign is comfort has replaced growth. When you first set a goal, there was tension, there was a stretch, a discomfort, a sense that you were reaching for something slightly out of reach. That tension is what growth feels like. It is not a warning sign to avoid. It is the exact sensation that tells you something is expanding inside you. But over time, many people quietly trade that tension for comfort. They stop reaching. They settle into a routine that asks nothing new of them. They tell themselves they are being stable, being wise, being realistic. But often what is actually happening is much simpler. The stretch became uncomfortable and comfort won. This trade usually happens so gradually that it is almost impossible to notice in the moment. No one wakes up one day and consciously decides to stop growing. Instead, it happens through 1,000 small substitutions. The challenging project gets replaced with a familiar one. The difficult conversation gets postponed in favor of an easier one. The new skill that felt exciting 6 months ago gets quietly abandoned once it stopped being easy and started requiring real effort. Each substitution feels reasonable on its own, but the accumulated effect is a life that has slowly optimized itself for comfort instead of capability. Here is the test. Think about your daily life right now. Is there anything in it that genuinely challenges you? Anything that makes you slightly nervous, slightly unsure, slightly out of your depth? If the honest answer is no, that is not peace. That is often potential going quiet, because potential only grows in the presence of a challenge large enough to demand something new from you. Comfort, by its very nature, asks nothing new of you, and anything that asks nothing new of you will produce nothing new in you. This does not mean you need to chase discomfort for its own sake or turn every day into an exhausting struggle. That is not sustainable, and it is not the point. The point is simpler. Growth requires a certain minimum level of productive tension, applied consistently, the same way a muscle requires resistance to grow stronger. Remove the resistance entirely, and the muscle does not rest. It weakens. The same law applies to your ability, your confidence, and your potential as a whole. The second sign is you explain your dreams more than you pursue them. Pay close attention to this one, because it is one of the most common and least noticed patterns among people who are wasting what they are capable of. They have become excellent at describing what they want to do. They can explain the plan in detail. They can tell you the vision with passion and clarity, sometimes so convincingly that even they forget how little of it has actually been built. But if you look at their actual daily actions, there is very little movement toward that vision. The talking has replaced the doing. This happens because talking about a dream produces a small emotional reward, very similar to the reward of actually working toward it. When you describe your vision to someone and they respond with interest, excitement, or admiration, your brain registers a genuine sense of accomplishment. It feels almost identical to the feeling of real progress. And once that reward is available through conversation alone, without any of the risk or effort required to actually pursue the goal, the pressure to act can quietly disappear. Why endure the difficulty of building something when describing it already produces a similar emotional payoff at a fraction of the cost? This pattern often shows up most clearly around other people. Notice how much easier it is to talk enthusiastically about a goal at a dinner table than it is to sit alone and actually work toward it the next morning. The conversation requires no real commitment. The work requires everything. If you find yourself describing your goals often, but your calendar this week shows almost no real steps taken toward them, this sign is likely present in your life and it is worth taking seriously. A useful practice here is simple. For the next 30 days, say almost nothing about your goal to anyone. Let your actions accumulate quietly, without narration, and notice how differently your relationship with the goal begins to feel once the emotional reward of talking about it is removed. The third sign is you wait for permission that will never come. Many people are sitting on real potential, waiting for a signal that never arrives, waiting to feel fully ready, waiting for someone to tell them they are qualified, waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect time, the perfect resources, the perfect emotional state. And while they wait, months turn into years, and the waiting itself becomes a kind of identity. They become known even to themselves as someone who is always preparing, always planning, always one step away from beginning. Here is the truth almost no one tells you. Permission is rarely given. It is taken. The people who eventually use their potential fully are not the ones who waited until every condition was perfect. They are the ones who began while conditions were still incomplete, while they still felt underqualified, while the plan was still messy and uncertain, and figured out the rest while moving. Motion creates information that waiting never can. You cannot think your way into readiness. You can only act your way into it and discover along the way exactly what you needed to know. There is a particular kind of self-deception hidden inside this waiting. It often disguises itself as responsibility. People tell themselves they are simply being careful, being thorough, making sure everything is in place before they commit. And sometimes that is genuinely true. But often underneath the careful language is simple fear wearing the costume of preparation. If you are waiting for someone or something to grant you permission to begin, ask yourself honestly how long you have already been waiting and what that waiting has actually cost you. Ask what you would attempt today in this exact moment if you were absolutely certain no one was going to stop you and no one was going to judge the outcome. The fourth sign is your circle reflects your comfort, not your goals. This one is uncomfortable, but it matters deeply, and it is often the sign people are most reluctant to examine honestly. Look closely at the people you spend the most time with. Are they stretching you, challenging your thinking, modeling the kind of growth you say you want for yourself? Or are they simply comfortable to be around, familiar, easy, undemanding, people who never ask more of you than you already give? There is nothing wrong with comfort in relationships. Comfort and closeness matter, and not every relationship needs to function as a growth engine. But when your closest circle never challenges your thinking, never models a level of growth beyond where you currently are, it becomes very easy to quietly lower your own standards to match the room you are in. Human beings are deeply influenced by their environment, often far more than they realize. The ambitions that feel normal in one room can feel almost unreasonable in another, not because the ambition changed, but because the surrounding standard changed. Potential is deeply influenced by environment in this exact way. If nothing around you is asking more of you, very little inside you will be asked to grow. This does not mean discarding people who are important to you. It means being intentional about also surrounding yourself, even occasionally, with people, ideas, books, and conversations that operate at a level slightly beyond where you currently stand. Growth tends to happen at the edge of your environment, not in its comfortable center. The fifth sign is you consume far more than you create. This is one of the clearest indicators of unused potential in the modern world, and it is becoming more common, not less, as access to information continues to expand. Endless videos watched, endless advice absorbed, endless plans studied, endless strategies learned, endless inspiration consumed. And yet, very little actually produced, no project finished, no skill practiced consistently, no output built and released into the world. Consumption feels productive because it engages the mind and creates the sensation of progress. Watching someone else build something, learning a new framework, absorbing a piece of advice, all of these activities feel like forward motion. And in small doses, they genuinely are useful because learning does inform action. But consumption without creation is like filling a container that has no outlet. Eventually it stops being useful, no matter how much continues to pour in, because the container was never designed to simply hold. It was designed to eventually pour back out into something real. Potential is only converted into something tangible through creation, through output, through the act of actually making something and putting it into the world, even imperfectly, even before it feels ready. A rough draft that exists is worth more than a perfect idea that stays in your head. An unfinished project that you actually started teaches you more than an entire library of advice about how projects are supposed to work. If your ratio of learning to doing is heavily tilted toward learning, this sign deserves your honest attention. A simple corrective practice is this: for every piece of advice or information you consume, commit to producing something, however small, before consuming the next piece. Let creation stay slightly ahead of consumption rather than the other way around. The sixth sign is you minimize your own ability in conversation. Listen closely to how you speak about yourself when your potential comes up, particularly in casual conversation where your true beliefs tend to slip out unfiltered. Do you downplay it? Do you deflect compliments quickly, almost reflexively? Do you say things like, "It's not a big deal," or "I'm not that good at it," even when the evidence in front of you clearly suggests otherwise? This habit might look like humility on the surface, and in many cultures it is even encouraged as a form of politeness. But underneath that social politeness, it often does something far more damaging. It trains your own mind to believe the underestimation you keep repeating out loud. Words shape identity over time more powerfully than most people realize. Every time you describe yourself as less capable than you actually are, you are not simply managing how others perceive you. You are quietly reinforcing a self-image inside your own mind, one repetition at a time. Over months and years, this repeated language becomes a kind of ceiling, an internal script that your actions unconsciously begin to match, because people tend to behave in ways that are consistent with the story they keep telling about themselves, even when that story was never entirely true to begin with. Begin paying close attention to how you talk about your own ability in conversations, in your internal thoughts, even in the jokes you make about yourself. Notice the pattern without judging it harshly, and begin experimenting with small corrections. Instead of dismissing a compliment entirely, simply say thank you and let the accomplishment stand without shrinking it. Your potential often grows or shrinks based on the story you keep telling about it, and that story is far more within your control than it might currently feel. The seventh and final sign is you have stopped asking what you are actually capable of. This is the deepest sign of all, and often the one that explains the other six. Somewhere along the way, many people simply stop asking the question, what am I actually capable of if I fully committed? What could I build if I gave this everything I have without holding anything back out of fear or convenience? What version of my ability have I never even tested because I decided long ago what my limits were without ever truly testing them under real pressure? This question often goes quiet gradually, not through a single decision, but through years of small disappointments, small comparisons, small moments where ambition felt inconvenient or unrealistic, until eventually it simply stopped being asked at all. And when that question goes silent, potential goes silent with it, because potential is not a fixed quantity that you either have or do not have. It is something you discover only by asking, testing, pushing slightly further than you have gone before, and honestly observing what happens next. Most people's sense of their own limits was formed years ago, often in childhood or adolescence, under conditions that no longer apply to who they are today. And yet, that outdated assessment continues to quietly govern their decisions in the present. The moment you stop asking what you are capable of, you freeze your own growth. At whatever level you happen to be standing on the day you stopped asking. Everything after that point becomes a slow maintenance of an old identity rather than an active exploration of a new one. Reopening that question, even in a small and private way, is often enough to begin loosening a limit that was never actually as fixed as it felt. So here is where we are. Comfort replacing growth. Talking replacing doing. Waiting replacing beginning. A comfortable circle replacing a challenging one. Consumption replacing creation. Self-minimizing language replacing honest self-assessment. And silence replacing the one question that could reopen everything. What am I actually capable of? None of these signs are permanent. They are patterns, and patterns, no matter how long they have been running, can always be interrupted the moment you decide to interrupt them. You do not need a dramatic turning point to begin reversing this. You do not need to wait for a new year, a new month, or a symbolic fresh start. You need one honest choice today. Choose one sign from this list that describes you the most closely right now, and take one small action against it before the day ends. If comfort has replaced growth, choose one small, uncomfortable action today, something that creates the productive tension you have been avoiding. If talking has replaced doing, stay silent about your goal for the next 30 days and let your actions accumulate without narration. If you are waiting for permission, begin today in whatever small and imperfect way is available to you right now. If your circle reflects comfort more than growth, seek out one conversation this week with someone operating at a level slightly beyond where you currently stand. If consumption has outpaced creation, produce something small before you consume anything else. If you have been minimizing your own ability, practice simply accepting the next compliment you receive without deflecting it. And if you have stopped asking what you are capable of, ask that question tonight, honestly, without an audience, and sit with whatever answer surfaces. Your potential has not disappeared. It has simply been waiting patiently for you to stop settling for comfort long enough to ask what you were actually built for. That question is still available to you right now, in this exact moment, regardless of how long it has gone unasked. The only thing standing between where you currently are and what you are truly capable of is the decision to finally ask it, and then the discipline to act honestly on whatever answer comes back. This is Elevate Purpose. New videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe, and let's find out together, one honest question at a time, exactly what you are truly capable of.